and get started. And what we're going to do is have each of y'all just talk a little bit about your career and any advice you'd have, key things that you would have somebody consider if they want to go into your particular field. And then after that, we'll do a little bit of question and answer. Do I have a volunteer of who would like to go first? We do have, let me go ahead and introduce who we have. We have Lisa, is it Swem? Did I get that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And she's an attorney.
You did.
The Thrun Law Firm. And then we also
Truly.
have Ann Hunter, and she's the Capital Division Chief in the Public Defender's Office of the 12th Judicial Circuit. And then we have Mary Bryson, and she is an associate attorney with Dinsmore and Scholl. Where are you located, Mary?
I'm right up the road in Lexington.
Okay, you're in Lexington. It didn't say, so I wanted to check. And then we have Carolyn Besl, and she is a magistrate in Warren County Common Pleas Court. So thank you all for joining us, first off. And do we maybe just want to go in the order I introduced you, or does anybody want to jump in?
Mary asked me to volunteer to be first.
And I introduced you first. So Lisa, and I'm going to go ahead and let some people in as we go. So I'll let you kick it off.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe in these extraordinary times. 1979 graduate of Center, history major, and I had a real dilemma as an undergrad. I was very interested in law school, but I also had a burning desire to teach and coach. I was on the women's basketball team at Center, and I finally concluded that I could always go to law school after I teach, but if I went to law school, I probably wouldn't teach, and I think that turned out to be right. So from Center, I went to Colgate University in New York and got my master's degree, and then I taught in a public high school in upstate New York for 5 years, where I got lots of experience teaching, fulfilled that desire, coached, much to my surprise, got very involved in union activities, and even got a little aggressive as a teacher, and going, wait a minute, they're paying the female coaches less than the male coaches. I think that's not right. And then filed a civil rights claim. And convince the other female coaches to do the same. That didn't really endear me with the administration, but I learned a lot and had a couple other experiences of that nature that were successful in terms of advocating that something's wrong and it needs to be righted. But that also started piquing my interest more so in law school, where, hey, I might as well start getting paid for this sort of behavior instead of getting in trouble for it. So at year 5, I applied to law school and wrote my essays on why I wanted to go into education law. And I went to Notre Dame Law School in South Bend, graduated in 1988. And have been with the Troon Law Firm in East Lansing, Michigan. I'm originally from Michigan. Our law firm represents over 500 public school districts in Michigan. We are the largest law firm in the country in terms of the number of school clients we have. We have about 28 attorneys. I mean, we're not a large law firm by attorney count, but in the context of representing school clients, there's not another law firm in the country that does as much school law work as we do. So I am very fortunate to be able to say my Center liberal arts background of establishing that pyramid, that strong foundation, and then moving up served me quite well. And I'm so lucky that I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do. And indeed, that teaching experience has served me well, even though my friends in the union were a little miffed when I said, no, I'm representing management now. I work for management. And that's just fine, because you have an opportunity to be more influential in that role. So that's my brief story. And I'm now finishing up year 32 with our law firm. I came here a week after graduation and haven't left. The other point I would make about law school and the practice of law in particular, your center education is going to serve you well. I was very well prepared for law school. And, Notre Dame's a top 20 law school. It was rigorous, but center prepared me. And I think the same thing is true for the practice of law. Whatever practice of law, it's one thing to go to law school. And by the way, many people go to law school and they don't practice law. They do interesting things with that degree. And it's kind of like an extension of a liberal arts background. It's just they kind of mess with your head a little bit with that Socratic method, and it's not quite as warm and fuzzy, but intellectually it's quite good and akin to the liberal arts. And that's the thing, regardless of your practice area, whether you go into patent or work patent law and take your science background, or you want to go into constitutional law or litigation, even litigators. I think that's a great example. Folks that do litigation all the time, well, they have their litigation skills that they learned in law school and honed in their practice, but now they've got to get their head around whatever the issue is. And it might be something that mechanical that was defective. It might be a property case. It could be anything. You don't know what the next client is and the next issue is that comes through the door. And again, that's where your liberal arts training at center gives you that good base to say, oh, well, that's interesting. And I'm going to have to learn a lot about that. I'm going to have to become the expert on whatever the issue is. And so it truly is, in many areas of practicing law, it truly is an opportunity for lifelong learning. And to me, that's one of the things that has been very interesting about the practice of law and what I enjoy about it. And my last point, and then I'll stop, is practicing law is hard. It really is hard. It's demanding. And it's especially demanding if you're not passionate about your practice area or your clients. If you're just doing it because you think that's a neat job and you might make some money, then I would strongly urge you to be very circumspect about the decision to go to law school. It's hard. And it doesn't, it's not the sort of thing that you do just for the money and be good at it, in my opinion. You need to have that passion. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleagues here.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Mary, I think you're up next.
All right. Well, kind of on a different end of the spectrum than Lisa, I am a 2014 graduate from Center College. So I'm a little bit more recent than Lisa, and went straight from Center to UK law right here in Lexington. And I was a history and then it was the government degree. It's now turned into the politics degree, double major. And again, not unlike Lisa, I faced a bit of a dilemma coming out of Center in that I had been accepted to some law schools and was really interested in going to law school. But then I also had an offer to work on a political campaign, and being, history government double major, that was also very intriguing to me, and had some tough conversations about where I thought I might, and kind of like Lisa was talking about, if she didn't teach first and didn't go to law school, then she might never come back to it. And I had kind of the same dilemma of, well, I wondered if I didn't go to law school now, would I ever get back to it? So unlike a lot of my colleagues at UK Law who came back to law school after a couple of years or after a Teach for America stint or entire other careers of decades, I went straight through. And so I was still kind of in that school mode that I think for me was a good thing, because I hadn't kind of hit a valley of academic learning and being in that mindset, which for me I found valuable. But by the same token, if you make the decision to take some time off, law school will always be there. And many of my classmates, including my husband, took some time off and then came back to law school. So that's one thing to bear in mind, is law school will always be there. That was something that made me quite nervous as a second semester senior deciding what to do with my life, but definitely bear that in mind, that law school will always be there. So I went to UK Law School, and then upon graduating, clerked twice, first for a federal district court judge in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and then for a Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals judge based out of London, Kentucky. So I've seen a little bit of the federal system, even just being a fairly recent law school graduate from 2017, and following my clerkships, joined the Lexington office of Dinsmore and Scholl. My practice focuses on commercial litigation. So as Lisa was saying, every client is going to be a little bit different. Their issues are going to be different. And just a couple of years of actual private practice, I've worked on everything from coal mining disputes to lease disputes, contracts. It's a little bit of everything. More recently, in the last 6 months, I've become a bit more involved with a division of our commercial litigation department that focuses on False Claims Act litigation. So that's a federal statute that allows private parties to bring claims when they think actors or entities, corporations, what have you, have made false claims against the US government. That could be anything from bad Medicare, Medicaid claims to any other claims for federal money that they think shouldn't have been brought. So that's been an interesting twist that I wouldn't have foreseen getting into right off the bat. But in the COVID era of working from home, I've been introduced to partners from all over our national offices, and have gotten into that work, which has been very interesting. And much like Lisa has said, I think I found that my center education was a great way to prepare for law school. In the same way that a liberal arts background, you're not just learning a trade, you're not just learning one thing. In much the same way, law school isn't just teaching you how to be a lawyer, it's teaching you how to think like a lawyer. So many of those same skills that a liberal arts education provides will serve you very well in law school. It will serve you well to have met with your professors as much as you do at center and become comfortable questioning and asking questions and seeking advice and help when you need it. All of those same things are at play in law school and will serve you very well. You're muted. Hey, Kirk, I think you're muted.
I try to mute because I have a dog. I'm sorry. But Caroline, you're going to go next if that's okay. And I think you're muted too. So.
Hi, I am Carolyn Besl. As Kurt said, I am a magistrate at the Warren County Court of Common Pleas, which is in Lebanon, Ohio, just up the road from Kings Island. And here's my Zoom disclaimer. I also have a dog. And if you hear barking, that's on her. She's sitting at the window right now. So if anyone walks past, you'll know. So I am a 2007 graduate of Center. I was an English major and creative writing minor, and Helen Emmett was my favorite professor. So if any of you have her, tell her that I said hi. She was amazing. Like everybody else that's spoken, I did not know what I wanted to do while I was at Center. after college. I thought about teaching, I thought about psychology, I thought about writing, and actually my sister ended up getting jury duty. And she went, and this was like, this is what I want to do. And she went off to law school, and I said, well, she can do it, I can do it. So I interned with Judge Bruce Petrie in Danville, and it was a wonderful experience. And it was kind of a way to see what I would get into before having to pay all the money and take the tests and get into law school. So if you are considering it, I highly recommend reaching out to attorneys in the area or judges in the area. They will almost always take free service and have you go around with them and know what it is to practice law in a variety of ways. So that's my first recommendation. So then I went to law school at Chase College of Law at Northern Kentucky University. Actually, my sister now works at Dinsmore and Scholl in the Cincinnati office at Intellectual Property. So hi, it's a small world in the community, I think. So let's see, I went into law school, and after my first year, I interned at Warren County, and they offered me a job upon graduation. So I was a law clerk there for 2 years after I graduated, and then I went to law clerk at the Court of Appeals in Ohio. We have 12 different courts of appeals in Ohio, so I was in the 12th district. And then I returned to Warren County after about 3 years as a magistrate. And I was the youngest magistrate in the court's history at 29, which I'm very proud of that fact. And I feel like it just is indicative of my education level that I got from center and beyond. Let's see. What is a magistrate, basically, I think is one question that I always get. So at the Ohio state level, a magistrate is basically what we call a baby judge. I can preside over cases that are civil, so like car accidents and neighbor disputes and breaches of contract, as long as they have at least $15,000 at stake, and I can do everything up to a jury trial. And I have done some jury trials as long as the attorneys and the parties sign off on it. So that's basically what I do. Like I sit on the bench and I help the judge with his docket flow. But to actually be the judge, you got to get elected. So that's politics, and that's messy no matter where you live. My advice to everyone would definitely be that you have to like or at least be okay with reading and writing a lot, no matter what level of law school you go to, what kind of lawyer that you're going to be, you're going to read and you're going to write. So I, at first in high school, hated reading and writing. And then I got to college and was like, oh, I'm going to be an English major suddenly, and I'm really going to like it. And now I love it. So if you're not there, but you're okay with it, that's fine too. I'm not saying if you don't love it, don't do it. The LSAT score that you get does not dictate how you will do in law school. So if you don't do very well in the LSAT, don't think of it as, oh, I shouldn't be a lawyer, because it really has nothing to do with how you will perform as a lawyer. And then law school is tough, and being a lawyer is tough, but it is not impossible. At this point in your life at Center, you know how to study, you know how to prioritize, and that is what Center set me up for. Where I saw other students who ended up failing out of law school, failing was because they didn't have the background that I had in knowing how to prioritize. You know, you have all of the social aspects, you have sports, you have the extracurriculars, you're doing all of them and studying at the same time. So do not worry about whether you will succeed in law school, because I know as a Center graduate that you will. And then, let's see, I wrote some notes down. So as Lisa said, like, you don't have to be a lawyer after you get out of law school. It's just information, which is great to have. It's a different way of thinking that you don't even know you learn in law school. So you will be able to go into a variety of fields from it. So if you're considering going to law school, my biggest hits are go meet a lawyer, talk to them and sit down and follow them around for at least a day, and then go for it, because it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I love what I do. So that's my 2 cents. I hope that's helpful for everyone. Thank you.
I was going to add, wait till COVID's over to go follow a lawyer.
Okay, that's true. That's a very good point.
I'm kidding. But thank you, Carolyn. And Ann? You're up.
Thanks. Good morning. My name's Ann Hunter, and excuse me, I'm a 2001 grad from Center. I was a double major biology and history. Unlike Carolyn, I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was in undergrad. I wanted to be a sports medicine doctor and work for a pro football team. And then just as our newest justice, Ben Beaton, who I went to school with, his wife Andrea and I were classmates. We were thetas together. And I don't know if you read the article in the centerpiece, but Ben said that he was sitting there in a lecture, madly studying for Dr. Workman's organic chemistry course, and realized that this was not the path that he wanted to go. I actually epically failed organic chemistry with Dr. Workman. It was not good, but it actually made me kind of reevaluate what I wanted to do. And so when everybody junior year was starting to take the MCATs, I had no idea where to even start. I wasn't interested. I hadn't thought about medical schools, anything like that. And so Dr. Boudreau, who was my history seminar professor, asked me what I wanted to do. And I was like, I got nothing. And he suggested looking into law, and it immediately sparked something in me, and took the LSAT. And I ended up going to Stetson here in Florida, in St. Pete. And part of the reason that I went to law school was I never intended on practicing law. I was going to get a law degree and do something, but I didn't really know what I was going to do. My father is a marine biologist and was very instrumental in a lot of helping form a lot of protective legislation in the state of Florida to protect the environment. And so I thought, oh, I have a biology degree and I can protect my dad's work. And it just didn't really kind of flow that way. I ended up in the public defender's internship program my third year of law school. And I had done some pro bono work at the state attorney's office throughout law school. And when I was going into, following attorneys and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, it was one of those, I'm never going to do criminal law. And if I do criminal law, I am absolutely never going to be a defense attorney because, oh my God, how can, you represent these people? And then I ended up at the public defender's office, and I felt like I was just home. Like this was where I was supposed to be. So now I am the division chief for the Capital Division here in Manatee County. It sounds very impressive, but it's me and one other attorney. We do all the homicides and the capital sexual batteries. So our caseloads are small, but they're intense. I've been with the public defender's office now for 15 years. And some of the things that I think are really important for you guys to remember is that bad grades in law school aren't going to necessarily stop you from doing anything. Good grades will open every door. So even if it's something that you don't want to do, you have the opportunity if you have good grades. And I just say that because I think it's really important for you guys to know, especially as undergrads, that you are going to fail in this lifetime, and you are going to fail a lot. And it's how you respond to that failure that is going to dictate what you do. So like I said, I failed Dr. Workman's organic chemistry class. I got a 38 on the final. I mean, I don't know if you can get much worse than that. I retook it the next year. I got an A. It was fine. It just wasn't my passion. It wasn't, where I wanted to go. And then I went to law school. I liked law school. I made some really good friends. My path shifted several times throughout the course of law school. And that's the thing also, like, you will go to school with people who were CPAs, and they're there because they want to be tax attorneys. They know exactly what they want to be. Lisa was an educator and wanted to go into education law. That was where she was headed. don't feel like you have to make that decision, because the crazy thing about a JD is that it's a general law degree. And what the law school and the bar is telling you when you have that degree and you pass that bar is that you are now considered able to do any kind of law, which is kind of crap, but you are considered to be able to do that. And it's because law school teaches you how to think. It does not teach you how to practice law. I will tell you that right now. Do not think you're going to go to law school and learn how to manage a caseload or, any of that kind of stuff. It's not. It teaches you how to think. Now, the huge advantage that we all have as center grads is that we have already learned how to think. That's what the best part about liberal arts education is that it teaches you to think. That's what law school does. It teaches you how to find the answer. You're not expected to know the answer, but you need to know how to find it. So you need to like to read, you need to like to write. Even though I'm a trial lawyer technically, I don't spend that much time in trial. I spend a lot of time writing motions and researching, and I spend a lot of time holding clients' hands. That's the other thing. You got to be passionate about what you're doing, and you have to be okay with who your clients are. And then the final thing that I'll leave you with is that you need to start your self-care now. This is something that I have only recently come to because the pandemic and just life in general and being in Florida, we have different challenges than other areas of the country. And I will tell you, I melted down this summer and I had to figure out how to care for myself. And that involved learning to meditate, taking time for myself. These are all things that I knew in undergraduate school. I exercised in undergrad. I can't really say I ate healthy, but those are habits that if you can get into now will serve you down the road. Because one of the things that you need to understand is that our profession has one of the highest rates of alcohol and drug addiction problems because it is hard. If you go into really, almost any kind of law, you are going to be dealing with people who are in some sort of crisis. And family law, if you go into divorce and custody, it is very emotionally taxing. And I'm sure Carolyn, as a magistrate, has probably presided over some of those kinds of hearings. It's hard. You have people whose lives are dependent on you in some way or another. And you have to be careful. It's called compassion fatigue. You wear out, you burn out. And so if you can learn now to prioritize your self-care, you will do so well going forward. And again, these are things that I knew this stuff in college and in law school. It took me 15 years to implement them. And so my suggestion is don't wait, take care of yourself now, because the only way you're going to serve your clients is if you are able to be present and think and read and comprehend. And you can't do that if you're exhausted and you're tired and you're burnout. So don't be afraid of failure. It's going to happen. The big thing is learn from it. Take advantage of every opportunity that you can in law school, trial team or law review. I was on the client skills board, so we did mediation competitions and negotiation competitions. Don't pigeonhole yourself. That's the great thing about center is that you aren't pigeonholed there. Don't pigeonhole yourself in law school. That's it.
Okay. Real quickly, thank you. That's great information from all of you guys. We may have time for like one or two quick questions. Does anybody have a question they really want to ask? We're a little short on time, but we could take one or two questions if somebody has one. Don't be shy.
I I have a really quick question.
Okay.
How did you guys, I know this might be a long time ago, but how did you guys pick what you were looking for in a law school? Like, how did you come to that decision?
Can I start?
Sure.
Okay, so my biggest advice for that, first and foremost, is if you're going to go Ivy League, you can practice anywhere if you're at the top schools. If you're not going to go Ivy League, and although I find myself very smart, I'm not Ivy League, go to a law school in or near the state you want to practice in. So I went to Northern Kentucky for law school. I knew that I wanted to practice in Ohio because that's where I'm from. And they will teach you things that are common to the bar around that area. I had a friend who went to Northern Kentucky for law school and went to Texas to practice, and she ended up failing the bar because Texas has all these laws on oil rights that they don't teach you anywhere else. So it's not like it's impossible. She passed the bar the second time she took it, and she's a fantastic lawyer down there. But my biggest recommendation is either go Ivy League anywhere, and that'll open doors for you, or go in the area where you want to practice.
And I'll just chime in. I 100% agree with what Carolyn said. I knew I wanted to stay in Kentucky, so I went to UK. The other thing to consider, and it's no one wants to talk about it, but law school is very expensive. So apply for scholarships, look very carefully at what financial aid package you're going to receive, and really think long and hard about it, because you graduate with, if you're going Ivy League, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. I was lucky it was tens of thousands at a state school. So really carefully consider the kinds of money you're getting different places. And this is unrelated, but something Carolyn said earlier made me think about it. If you're considering law school, take classes with Dr. Stroop. He will be the best professor at Center to help prepare you for the kinds of questions you will get in a law school classroom. So if you haven't yet registered for his classes, do so.
Unfortunately, he retires next year, so.
Dang it, do it while you can.
He's in a phased retirement, but that was a good question. I hate to cut it off, but these are mini career chats, and I've got one right behind you guys, and I've only got 4 minutes before my Zoom's going to cut me off anyway. So this has been
Just
great.
real quick,
Yeah.
real quick, if anybody wants to talk off Zoom, email or phone, you can email me at
Can you
my
put it
work.
in the chat? Can you put it in the chat?
Absolutely.
Put it in the chat
Yeah.
right now. I'll leave it up for just a second if you want to do that. And I'm sorry to rush you guys, but
No, you're fine.
I knew this was going to happen when we had 4 people. I said, we don't.
When you had 4 lawyers.
Yeah, 4. I wasn't going to say that, but no, it's great. I'm glad y'all all were here because you each had a different perspective, but we're just a little time crunched. So yeah, and that's great. I would take a minute here, guys, and write down these emails and utilize this resource because you
And
guys
shadow, because that will really give you an idea of how things really work, as opposed to what you think they're going to be like, because criminal law was nothing like what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Just
much
like-
for putting this together.
Yeah.
Oh,
this
you're
is
welcome.
great.
Thank you all for joining us, and take
Good
care
luck.
in this crazy
Good luck.
times. Okay, bye.